Hello and welcome back to the channel, folks. HeirofCarthage here, and thanks to Wicked, or in this case President Tyranid, we're going to get to see another awesome Warhammer 3 multiplayer battle. I'm going to show you the armies first here, and then we'll go on in. This one is going to be another version of some very shooty high elves. So there's been a lot of missile-themed armies that came in from Wicked, and that's kind of fun to see. Now, one thing I should note, and someone commented on this on my last video where there was a ton of archers for Bretonnia, and he was saying, hey, before people start saying there should be caps and kiting and all this stuff, you know, maybe so, but I agree with him when he says, really, you don't need these caps because, like, 90% of the time, this army's not going to work. And that is the case. You know, he made a crazy pick. It ended up being a really good pick. And so just having a really shooty army isn't necessarily something that's always going to work. All right? But I do like to see them because sometimes it's a trickier style of play, and it can be quite satisfying when it works. In this case, we're going to have an Archmage, Lore of Metal. Going to be bringing in that Book of Hoeth for some extra magic, and then we're going to have the Arcane Conduit again for pulling down more magic, and it's really going to all be around Final Transmutation. There are no other spells, and Final Transmutation is going to be great at taking out enemy characters or single entities. There's an Arcane Phoenix supporting the army, which is a pretty powerful melee unit that does have this magic, tornado ability here, basically Ember Storm, which is going to be good at breaking up blobs, and then gonna get some damage resistance and other stuff there too. A Frostheart Phoenix is an excellent debuff unit. It brings in the Frostbite attacks, which is really nice to see. And then there's a Blizzard Aura here too, which is an excellent debuff at a 35-meter radius. This is gonna actually be a pretty powerful goon squad between the combination there. And then you're gonna have a lot of Lothern Seaguard, which at a lower price point continue to be a really solid unit, as they are decent in melee, not amazing, decent. Certainly good against light cavalry. But they're not going to be good against anything heavier, and they're only okay in an infantry fight, right? But still, an interesting unit. Illyrian Reavers, again, already a decent unit made cheaper. Illyrian Reavers are a decent melee combatant against low armor. Should be an interesting one. And then the Empire here coming with a pretty more standard army. I like all the shields they picked here. Swordsmen, spearmen with shields, just to be able to block some archers. And speaking of dealing with archers, they have a Hellstorm rocket battery, and then they also have a Hellblaster volley gun, which can be pretty brutal. There's a grenade launcher in case they need to get a hold of, larger chunks of infantry. They got a Bright Wizard here, which is going to be bringing some Burning Head support. And then they got Boris, and it looks like Boris is mounted on his Griffin. Going to be a pretty tough unit there, as he can heal and do some debuffing. So it should be an interesting fight. A few crossbows, too, to add some mid-range type units. Let's jump in and check out what happens in this one. Alright, here we are on the battlefield. We can see the Elven army moving through the woods. They will face this grenade launcher pretty quickly, but that grenade launcher better retreat. If these archers stop and shoot, it will actually get mowed down in a big hurry. Yep, here comes some shots. So good to take those shots and drive that unit back. Although it's going to, I think, get out of range just in the nick of time, but it's being pursued by a Frostheart Phoenix. That Frostheart Phoenix is going to have to be careful, though, between the crossbows. Some other support units. Moving through the woods was an excellent choice for the elves here. That is really going to hurt the potential of the Empire artillery here to hurt these archers early. Plus, it gives the high elf time to scout. Look at that Frostheart Phoenix just going all the way in. I guess they're not concerned about getting pinned here. I mean, there is no Light Wizard to throw down a net, nor is there Wolfheart, who would also be on a net. Oh, it looks like Boris is actually on his horse. I was looking at the speed and guessing there, but it looks like it's on a horse. Oh, here comes a Burning Head. See if Wicked catches it. Nope. That one's going to go straight through that Seaguard, and then it's going to burn into these Reavers. I don't think it'll do as much damage to the Reavers, but that was a really well-cast Burning Head. That is going to hurt the Elves bad early there, so a really nice play there by the Empire player. He's got his Outriders up here, and they're trying to put some grenades into this blob. That is actually, it's not a great choice because they're going to get shot up, but again, he just compounds a little bit of the damage there. And then the Phoenix was able to get in here and rout the Bright Wizard. Oh, what a loss for the Empire. That was a nice play by Wicked. And then it looks like the Arcane Phoenix has kind of just dove into the back lines here, going after the Hellstorm rocket battery. Not a bad choice because that's a really important unit. Boy, it is getting bullied by Boris Todbringer, who is bringing the heat. Now, Boris is not particularly armor-piercing in this case. Looks like the Illyrian Reavers coming in to try and bail out that Arcane Phoenix. But look at the disruption here by the Elf player. He's already got a unit of crossbows on the route. This Frostheart Phoenix is just completely disrupting the backlines, and it has the Empire in total disarray right now. And then over here, the infantry having to turn and face more archers that came in from the opposite flank through the woods, so a really nice use of the terrain and the deployment here by the High Elves. I mean, that burning head was absolutely amazing. There was another one that just came across here too because the Bright Wizard had come back from routing, so another big hit on the Elven archers, but there is some serious bleeding going on in the Empire's ranks right now. But look at this, they took down an Illyrian Reaver here, and the Spearmen are holding back more Illyrian Reavers. I just have to question at this point how the Empire might be able to deal with those single entity targets. I think that is going to be their bigger challenge. The infantry is forced into pursuing the Sea Guard. I almost wonder if maybe they shouldn't have just fallen away from the Sea Guard and tried to delay this fight, but they are going to get absolutely picked apart. They wouldn't even really do that well in a melee now that they've been damaged as much. The Sea Guard would be able to take them. So, boy, that is a really rough situation, and a very nice use of the Sea Guard on that flank is kind of a mobile flanking force that's kind of self-contained. Like, they can protect themselves against lighter cavalry, and they can, kite the infantry, so that was an interesting combination. We're going to see that Archmage up on an Eagle too, which is going to provide some nice speed. Eagle is pretty squishy, but can deal some heavy damage, as long as there's not too much armor in the way for that damage. The Empire is getting some units back over here that they might be able to bring to bear, but the Illyrian Reavers are going to be pushing in on it quickly. So the Elves actually had a missile army, but they used it to actually rush and disrupt. So it was like a combination of missiles, hybrid missiles, I have to say, in the case of the Lothern Sea Guard, but there was a goon squad to disrupt, and then the Illyrian Reavers to provide quicker on-site support there. Here comes a final transmutation, and it looks like it's targeted on Boris, obviously, but it's also going to pick up those spears. So Boris is going to get himself gooned out here, and really there is no answer for the Empire now that they've lost their leadership. It's an interesting match. It happened very quickly. There was limited scouting potential over here. The Empire did have the grenade launcher, so they got some idea of what was coming from the Elves. They took quick action with the Burning Head, which may have actually popped them ahead, even if it was just momentarily. But then that disruption that we saw over here from Wicked against the Empire lines was really quite well done. And it really played to the strength, because then his missile units were able to keep firing, despite the fact that the Bright Wizard really did a pretty good job putting a lot of damage on those main forces. But I also think that this flank of Lothern Sea Guard over here, they did a great job of distracting 2 infantry units, killing them, and now are able to push over here and cause even more damage. Another Burning Head here, so the Empire not giving up on this fight yet, though again, I don't really see how they can come back from it. The Bright Wizard with the Burning Head, not a bad choice. Definitely was able to get some damage done. In this case, the Empire just didn't have a good answer to the single entities. So they had a lot of state troops. They were queued to be able to take on archers. They weren't really... they did have the Hellblaster volley gun, which can do some damage to single entities. But when you think about it, that gun has a hard time turning and facing. It's also okay against, expensive Elven infantry and cavalry. So the Hellblaster's not worthless against the Elves, not by any means, but it's slower to react to the single entities that are busy moving around the battlefield. Look at this, the Demigryph Knights with halberds rolling out. This unit was kind of needed earlier. I don't know exactly where it was at, but it alone would not have been able to bring down the Goon Squad, especially if there was Illyrian Reavers or other things supporting the archer fire nearby. You can see over here that the mage is going to be chasing out the crossbows. The Demigryph Knights obviously want a piece of her, but even if they catch her, but between the combined might of the different Phoenix units here, I don't think it's going to go well for the Empire. I just don't think there's a way they can claw themselves back into this battle. There's too many High Elf units left, though. The Empire did manage to get a little piece of this Sea Guard over here. However, these other 2 remain mostly intact, and there goes the army route. So an interesting, very archer-heavy army here for the High Elves, and again, their lower price makes this a little more feasible, because each one of these units would have cost like about 50 more gold or so, roughly, in the last patch, and when you multiply that out across like 10 units, I mean, that's like a whole extra unit that you get to bring to the battlefield, or it's different spells, or different mounts, and abilities, stuff like that, that really do make a difference in the end. So I like the way the Elves were buffed in this patch, using money rather than changing a whole bunch of stat lines, because it does allow them to just put a few more of their already pretty good units on the battlefield. It was just, I think, really, it's not their unit stats that were too far off. Definitely probably just the cost, right? Because the Elves are supposed to have pretty tough units, and I think they do for the most part across the board. It was just there weren't quite enough of them on the field at any given point in time. Let's take a look. Look at some of these Seaguard racking up kills, getting some pretty decent value over here for sure. Not too bad at all, especially since their price has been dropped. Again, Reavers, I mean, some of these guys may not hit their exact cost value, but I mean, if you consider the cost of disruption and fast support, I mean, they were worth it. And then the standard archer unit here, picking up 132 kills, 743 value. That's on like a 425 or 450 cost archer unit. So that's a really good deal there. And if we take a look over here, Boris was trying to get the damage done, just wasn't able to do it. The Demigryph Knights were not able to get enough of the big targets. And then the Hellblaster gun did some damage, but wasn't able to really do enough. And the same with the rockets. I mean, the High Elves did a really good job of shutting down that rocket. They got all over the rocket. And the rocket is a good pick for putting down archers and infantry formations. But it does have to be protected, and I think the Empire would have had to have kept those Demigryph Knights a lot closer to these artillery to try and fin that off. But they still would have had major trouble because the Reaver archers would have been there shooting at them the whole time they were trying to fend off the goon squad. So it would have been a very difficult thing to deal with. But in any case, what do you all think? What would you do differently in terms of picks if you were the Empire player? Or if you had his army, how would you have tried to play this differently? Honestly, it was a pretty solid use of terrain by Wicked. You know, that forest was going to give him quite a bit of protection from the Empire. Plus, it slows down the scouting ability of the Empire. Like, it takes them longer to realize exactly what's coming out at them. And information is sometimes victory in a battle. And so that also plays a role. But anyway, curious what you all think. Make sure to go down and leave your thoughts. Appreciate Wicked supplying all these replays this week. It was a huge help. It helped me get more videos out. So you all make sure and thank him down in the chat as well. HeirofCarthage signing up for now. I'll see you all soon with some more action in Total War Warhammer 3.